What is going on, guys? This is Daniel, happy to be back with a video, and today I want to talk about the Jazz offense. They've got off to a bit of a slow start, but in their game against the Mavericks about a week ago, they put on a really nice display, and in particular, they put on a clinic in a few concepts, recognizing an advantage on offense, cutting and moving without the ball, and running pick and roll after action. These are the areas I'm going to focus on in this video, so let's get to it. Let's start with recognizing an advantage. So on this play, the Mavericks are a bit behind in transition as DeAndre Jordan trails Gobert. And you see that Matthews calls out the switch, he'll take Gobert, while Jordan will take Ingles out on top. And Rubio does a great job of recognizing what happens as he swings it over to Ingles, who now has a good angle on top to throw it into Gobert, taking advantage of the size mismatch on the ducking. This is a great way of taking advantage of a mismatch, better than a post up later in the play or not taking advantage of the size difference at all. On this play, Crowder finds himself guarded by Dennis Smith, a point guard. So they look to post Crowder up, and first off, nice patience by Crowder to not immediately take a turnaround jumper. Instead, they use Crowder as a hub for off-ball action. Rubio is receiving a flare screen from Gobert, and while Rubio isn't a big shooting threat and he doesn't shoot it when he gets it on top here, what happens next is great offense. Crowder senses Smith relaxed a bit after he passes it out and immediately looks to establish deeper post position. Rubio is on the same page and looks to get it back to Crowder, and now when Crowder gets it, he's deeper and gets a layup. This right here is great stuff from Coach Quin Snyder. So the Jazz are taking it out on the baseline, and we see Snyder barking out instructions. And what happens next is O'Neal goes and looks to take the ball out instead of Dante Exum. And the reason is Exum is being guarded by the small JJ Barea. So the Jazz had worked on some sort of play in practice to take advantage of a mismatch like this. O'Neal takes it out, Exum goes under the rim, and they simply throw it up, and Exum gets fouled. Now let's talk about off-ball movement and cuts, and the Jazz killed the Mavs in this game with their movement and cutting. So here it's a pick and roll with Ingles, and you notice that Luka Doncic is looking right at the ball. So Crowder in the weak side corner times his cut nicely and cuts backdoor on the baseline. Ingles is patient, and it's a layup. This is another nice cut with recognition, so this time Ingles is matched up in an isolation, and you notice that Maxi Kleber is already starting to drop low and guard the big man even though he's guarding Georges Niang in the corner. And Niang recognizes this and he doesn't cut right away, but when Ingles faces a bit of trouble and picks up his dribble, he immediately cuts along the baseline, Kleber is preoccupied, and Niang gets fouled. Another good read from Niang, so here off the dribble handoff, Ingles gets middle. And what defenses like to do is have the perimeter player one pass away closest to the gap help to prevent the drive toward the middle. And that's what Kleber looks to do here. But Niang times his cut nicely, so before Ingles has even gotten inside the three-point line, he's cutting toward the basket with the direct purpose of countering Kleber's help. Kleber sees the cut, but it's difficult for him to recover in time, and Niang gets the layup. Here's another example of the Jazz achieving that gap spacing on a drive toward the middle. So here Ingles comes off of a screen, and after Rubio makes the pass, he immediately goes to the wing to create as much space as possible to make it tough for Smith to get in the gap and prevent the drive toward the middle. Here Ingles does get middle, he just can't finish. And while it doesn't happen often for the Jazz, here's an example of poor gap spacing. So O'Neal uses the pick and roll toward the middle, and we see that Crowder is standing right at the top of the key, with no intention of moving to the wing or cutting. And because of that, his defender, Harrison Barnes, is able to station himself right at the foul line in perfect position, and he ends up poking the ball away, all because of the poor spacing. Let's get to some more cuts. So here Rubio runs a pick and roll and drives right along the lane line, and as he's doing this is a great opportunity for a cut from the corner, and Crowder times it nicely and gets a layup. Here Dallas will ice the sideline pick and roll, forcing Rubio toward the baseline. And notice how Mitchell cuts from the corner, and first off, he cuts hard. This is the only way to cut, freeing up opportunities for himself and teammates. And on this play, Matthews does a good job of sticking with his man, Mitchell. But I love what happens next. Crowder is aware, and on the wing, he goes to the corner to give Rubio an outlet pass now that Mitchell has cut. Smith was guarding Crowder, but he's in the paint, and it's very difficult for him to keep track of what's going on there and see Crowder go to the corner. The result is Crowder gets an open 3. Same type of pick and roll here with Exum driving along the baseline, and this is a great opportunity for a cut. And first off, we see Barnes guarding Niang, and he drops low to bump Gobert on the roll. And now we see Mitchell, before Exum has even gotten into the paint, he's cutting hard from, this time, the top. And Matthews was guarding Mitchell, and he follows Mitchell. And this cut directly leads to a Niang 3 because now if the defense collapsed, Exum can kick it out, and there's no one really in position to close out to Niang. Right here we have a high pick and roll for the Jazz, and with 2 weak side perimeter players, and on this play we see Kleber goes to bump Gobert on the roll. And I really like what Crowder does here. He'll shake toward the top, and he really exaggerates this fill. Notice where he ends up catching the ball, right where O'Neal started his pick and roll. It's a simple throwback for O'Neal. Kleber gets hung up on the closeout, and it's an open 3. The weak side shake is especially important in 2 pick and roll scenarios. The first one is the trap, which is what happens here to Mitchell. His first look is to Gobert if possible, but that's a tough pass, and here Gobert is covered. Then he looks to get it over to Rubio, and if Rubio just stayed where he was, that'd be a 20-foot pass, and by the time he got the ball, Jordan would be able to recover to Gobert, and there would be no advantage for the Jazz. But notice how Rubio runs toward the top, making it an easier and quicker pass, so now when Rubio gets it, Jordan is not recovered to Gobert yet, and they can go high-low, though Gobert can't finish here. It's crucial to have the shake and great spacing also when the defense switches, which is what happens here. Barea is now guarding Udo after the switch, and because Niang is right on top and not all the way on the wing, Exum can throw it back to Niang, who now has a good angle to go high-low and take advantage of the switch there on the duck-in instead of a stagnant post-up. The last thing I want to focus on is the Jazz third quarter pick and roll sequence, and it starts off with a pick and roll, but notice what happens before the pick and roll. It's off-ball action for Ingles. He runs off a double screen, and this gets Doncic off balance. He ends up lunging at Ingles to try to take away the 3, so Ingles and Gobert go into a pick and roll. This causes Doncic to fall behind the screen, and while this isn't a great shot for Ingles, it is a rhythm floater. 30 seconds later, the Jazz go into their motion, a simple pin down for Rubio, but here you see Matthews falls behind. And versus a poor shooter, he probably should lay back, but instead he goes and pressures Rubio, running him off the line, and this causes him to be behind the pick and roll, trailing Rubio. This forces DeAndre to step up more than he'd like, and Gobert gets the alley-oop, all because of that pin down which set up the pick and roll. Less than a minute later, now the Jazz switch it up and set up the Spain pick and roll, which starts with a Gobert screen for Mitchell on top, then Ingles will set a back screen for Gobert, and then pop to the 3-point line on top. And this is a very difficult play to defend, and Matthews sticks with Mitchell pretty well, but the Mavs have a different coverage versus the Spain pick and roll. So Matthews runs out to take Ingles on top, but there is miscommunication and they end up leaving Gobert again. Then the next time down, the Jazz get extremely simple with a basic high pick and roll. But now, Jordan is so tired of seeing Gobert get alley-oops, he doesn't even bother to stop the ball, stays with Gobert, and Mitchell gets an easy layup. Bad defense? Yes, but that was set up by the plays prior. And their offense was even more clever than you'd think. Let's go back by watching that Spain pick and roll 2 plays ago, and it starts with Ingles setting a screen for Gobert, and then we see him go set that back screen in the middle of the floor, and Gobert gets a dunk. Now we watch the play after and notice how it starts the same way. Ingles sets that screen for Gobert, but this time he goes out to the perimeter, so it's a basic spread pick and roll. But because the play started the same way, I think that confused Jordan. Not only did he want to stop Gobert, but with Spain, as I explained earlier, the Mavs would have a different defensive coverage, which would bring more help to the ball and allow Jordan to focus on fighting through the back screen and sticking with Gobert. But it wasn't Spain, and Mitchell gets a layup. So that's really smart stuff by the Jazz coaching staff. By having the Spain pick and roll and the normal pick and roll start the same way and running them on back-to-back plays, that confused Dallas. Well, there you have it, guys. I'll see you next time.